The key one, of course, is around how we communicate, our verbal communication against our non-verbal communication. What's our tone? How long are we talking? And what's the terminology, of course, that we use when talking to players? Occasionally, we may need to sort of bring ourselves back down to player level, using language, terminology, and words that people can understand. Make sure our communication methods can sort of, shall we say, hit the spot with the tone, the short, sharp, concise message. The longer you talk to a player, of course, the increased probability is that whatever message you're giving is that it's going in one ear and out the other with the greatest of respect. So I think sometimes we just need to consider how long we talk with a player. Of course, one of the main areas of focus, if you like, on IFAB, the game's lawmakers, is to increase playing time. And we never really look to endorse overly long periods of dialogue between you and a player at a stoppage in the game, because people have not come to see us as a referee. They've not come to see us have that dialogue with players. What they come to do is, of course, watch the game. Occasionally, we need to demonstrate that ability to listen, to pull back our ears and just receive the message, right? Sometimes people want their say, and if you talk over them, they talk over you, and actually you just get this kind of clash. So sometimes, again, for short periods of time, we might just need to listen, because what we perceive to be the problem might not always be the case. What do I mean by avoid and evade? And I kind of expanded on this in the summer to our 2B referees, in that, we don't look in the face of hostility when we kind of predict and forecast that it might be there. I had this odd knack when I was an active match official, specifically if I was fourth official on a game, if a perceived incorrect decision had been applied by the on-field match officials against, let's say, the away team to my right, I really wasn't going to look in the direction of the away team to my right at that exact moment in time. I'd be looking at the home team, I'd be looking at something else, I'd be looking at the play, I'd be looking at the scoreboard, of course, because why look in the face of hostility and aggression? We need to consider our body language, our personality. If we have humour, I think we all have character, but sometimes you'll know if you are a person of humour, a sense of humour. And furthermore, if you're able to use that sense of humour during the game as a referee. I think sometimes we need to express some empathy for players' frustrations. What I say to the referees that we're working with is that, when you give a decision against a team, it's very rare that that team would say, thank you ever so much, we agree with that decision and we support what you're doing. We have to be somewhat immune that we're always going to get some kind of comment from players. Just because somebody's expressing that they have a difference of opinion on something, that doesn't always mean that it's dissent. It becomes dissent if it lasts, if it carries on, if the tone changes, if it's said with aggression, if it gets louder. Somebody actually saying, I don't agree that you've got that free kick right, it was never a foul type conversation. I think if we start to take certainly disciplinary action for every time a player expresses dissatisfaction with our decision making, we're probably in for a long hour and a half of refereeing. And of course, we have two final options in terms of using the stepped approach, the subtle word, using the captain, or sometimes maybe let's kind of front this up. Often the problem player can be the captain themselves. So there's generally a player that you form a bond with, a relationship with, somebody who's a little bit more mature, a little bit that you have some kind of dialogue with. It's generally a midfield player because they're kind of close to you as a referee. So if the problem is with the captain, always try and confide in a more experienced player if you feel they can be that conduit between you and the problem player. Captain, of course, has no special privilege, but the stepped approach is there for us to use to prevent misconduct rather than be forced to cure. And of course, finally, where expressions of dissent or people kind of breach your tolerance level, and you all have your own tolerance levels, there's that disciplinary sanction that we can fall back on. But I think what this is highlighted is there's a number of tools in our kind of box that we can use as a referee when dealing with player frustration, when dealing with player dissent, when trying to manage and communicate with the game's participants.